everyone, and thank you so much for coming out today. I think this is going to be an amazing conversation. Whether you are someone who works for a big company and you're looking for inspiration, or you are a founder or an aspiring founder and you're also looking for inspiration, I think we're going to learn so much from the founders on the stage with me today. Thank you all for coming.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
To start, I'd love to hear, all of you actually have started brands in industries with really well-known incumbents, very sort of established dynamics. I'm thinking of the soda industry, where I think we all know Coke and Pepsi, or the fragrance industry, where probably a good portion of people around the world know Chanel No. 5. These are brands that are so iconic, and yet your brands have broken through. And so I'm curious, what is the special sauce that allowed you and your brand to really break through, especially in those early days when you were getting started? We can, go down the line, I guess. Who wants to start?
Awesome. Well, thank you for having all of us. This is like such an incredible panel to be a part of. And I think from day one, our mission at Poppi was to revolutionize soda for the next generation. So I really wanted Poppi to be the soda my kids and grandkids know as soda. And to your point, that's really hard. To be a challenger brand going up against such big household names was not easy, but I think what really broke through for Poppi was the fact that what I always call is like the 3 C's, is we are 100% community first, right? We don't look at customers, we look at our community. We're really creative and disruptive in the way that we're thinking, and then culture. I do think we move at the speed of culture. And for example, with that, like we have 80% of our marketing or our sales plan, but we really leave 20% up for like the wild, wild west of what may come, and so allows us to move at speed and be culturally relevant so that our community loves to follow what we're doing.
Well, I love that. We love Poppi. At Olive in June, before Olive in June, the incumbents were really focused on salon products that were made for manicurists, and they just put them on the shelf and assumed that the consumer would use them. And what we realized by being hyper-focused on the consumer is that there weren't products that were available for them to actually do their nails at home. And so everyone felt completely stuck in the category or lost. And so what we really focused on was, how do you create the best products possible for the consumer to use? How do you layer it with real education? Because manicurists weren't going to teach you how to do your own nails. And so there was really a lack of any sort of education in the market. And then how do you make it fun? How do you make it community-based? Like Allison said, we're very just so in touch with our community and making sure that they feel really, really connected and part of what we're doing, so that it doesn't feel like it's just this vast thing that they don't know how to do. And in every other category of consumer, especially in beauty, there was DIY and there wasn't in nail. So we really focused on making sure that we had this right offering and we layered education, and that way the consumer felt completely taken care of, and now they have the best nails possible for $10 instead of $80 at the salon.
I love that. I'm a fan of both. So, hi everyone, I'm Chriselle with Phlur, and Phlur was an existing brand before I came on board 4 years ago, and what Phlur was really recognized for before I came on board was just being transparent. They were one of the very first fragrance brands to be clean and completely transparent with all the ingredients that they were using. So we saw an opportunity there once my business partner and I decided to come on board and take over Phlur. So I think one is transparency in that category specifically, and two, it was a very new approach to fragrance. I think fragrance typically has a way of having one scent, and that's your signature scent. That's how we were all kind of raised to view fragrance, but we said no, fragrance should be fun. It should be like fashion, dependent on the mood, your emotion, where you're going, who you're seeing. It should be playful, you could layer, there's no rules to it. So we actually kind of shifted how everyone viewed fragrance originally, and we said, no, there are no rules here. It should be a playful brand. And so with the younger generation, they viewed Phlur as a way of self-expression. We were really strong with emotional storytelling. Our very first scent was called Missing Person, which it was when I was going through my divorce, I was missing feeling loved, I was missing a person. And at that time, you couldn't smell our scent because we weren't at any retailers. And so I was telling this story of emotion and how I felt, and so many people resonated with that. And I think the power of that was way more powerful than any marketing, fancy advertising of a woman on a horse, or, finding Prince Charming at the end of the commercial, because people were like, I feel broken too. Like, I want to know how that smells. I resonate with that emotion. And that garnered really a wait list of 250,000 people for a scent that no one's ever smelled before. And that just shows you the power of emotional storytelling. So that is really kind of how we broke through in the fragrance industry, was through storytelling.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Congrats to all of you, and thank you for having me. So with Nutrafol, it was a category that was quite off and weird, hair loss. There was distrust, there were a lot of misconceptions, and nobody was really talking about it 10 years ago. So how do you break through? It started with authenticity. It started with my own personal story. That was quite embarrassing. I've repeated it too many times. And then of course comes credibility. If you want to break through a category where you're addressing a problem for people, which is, I believe, what companies are meant to do, is to add value to people's lives. It's like you need to solve the problem. So for us, it was all about just doubling down on credibility, clinical trials. It was self-funded from the beginning, so we just invested everything. It was almost like all in. If it works, it works. Hopefully we can change our own hair health and a lot of people's lives, hopefully. If it's not working, then so be it. At least we tried. Everyone thought we're crazy, but really the doubling down on credibility and the clinical trials was everything for us. And then the other piece was empathy. I think the world needs more empathy. And a lot of these companies out there at the time, they were all focusing on fear tactics, right? Don't lose your hair, and selling something that was not realistic. So empathy, really being there for our customers along the way, never giving up on that, and that's still something that's alive in the company, which is really, really cool. Setting people up for success.
Yeah, I love this idea of sort of emotional resonance combined with honesty. Feels like something that sort of lacking in all of these spaces, and also a way to connect with people. And I think we hear this buzzword community a lot these days. Obviously, so many brands are trying to build their community on social. What do sort of establishment companies get wrong about community, and what do you feel like your sort of younger brand has gotten right? And how have you seen that sort of play out, whether it's on social or elsewhere?
I think it's so funny. What I always say is build your community before you scale, because once you're at scale, it's really hard to build a community, to your point. And what happens is you get so big it's not a priority, and then you are reactive to what someone else has already done. And you're almost like copying what other people are doing versus paving the way. And I think that's something that we did really good at Poppi, is social first was like from top down. I believed in it. The entire senior leadership believed in just this massive place that you could just talk to your community, quote unquote, in the early days for free. Of course, you can put paid against it as well. But I just think that bigger companies leave it up to the intern. They are not up on trends. Everything has to get approved through some lawyer. And it just doesn't, once again, let you or allow you to move at the speed of culture. And so even post-transaction at Poppi, it's been something that was really important for us, and it was like the core of our DNA, is to not allow that to happen. And so we had conversations ahead of time, just making sure they knew we are a digital social first company, and that is how we talk to our community, and just to allow it to stay in place, and they haven't changed a thing. So I think they're learning, but it's really hard at scale to do it if you don't take it seriously.
You have to have those conversations up front. Yeah.
Yeah, we started as a nail salon chain, so we started as that one-on-one experience with the consumer and with our, quote, community. And the reality is that what we realized was that people were going into nail salons and not feeling like they had a real conversation with someone consistently, and sometimes it was changing, or you had to tell your manicurist a million times, I want to cut my cuticles, I want to push them back, don't cut them. So what we did in the salons, which then translated to how we built our digital community, is we had preference sheets, and you would write down all your preferences, and they would be stored on file, and every time you came in, no matter what manicurist you were booked with, they knew how you wanted your nails. And so we took that experience and that focus on the consumer, and it wasn't a buzzword, it really is who we are, it's our DNA, and we solve that pain point, to your point before of pain points, and really solving pain points, which is what we're all up here doing, and we translated it to a digital platform, and obviously we do that on social, but for us, social is also about joy and happiness and making people feel good. And maybe you sneak in a little bit of a hack on how to do your nails, but we're here to hang out with you. So it's not about ROI or really doing anything other than inspiring and delighting our community.
Yeah, I agree. Your team has sent me like every Mother's Day, they're like doing my mom's nails and my daughter's nails. So you guys definitely have that community element down.
We love it.
Yeah.
We love you. There's a lot of love in this panel for everyone. We have a lot of love. Yeah, we're very, we really love each other.
I think the consumer now is really smart. I think they know what they want. They know when something's authentic. They also know when something's not authentic. And so I think with the bigger brand, it's really hard to fake it when it feels, it's just like a means to an end and it's a marketing tactic, right? And so at Phlur, we are always the ones that set the tone, but then we also listen. There's always room to listen. And for example, Vanilla Skin, we launched a few body mists. It was a little over a year and a half ago, and it was originally just body mist. But everyone was like, we love Vanilla Skin. It's so sophisticated. Can you make it as a fine fragrance? And we just kept hearing it over and over and over again. And we're like, man, do we really want to double up the same product, same scent in a different category? Does that even make sense? But you know what? It seems like there's demand. Let's give it a try. One of our most successful eau de parfums is the one that our consumer demanded from us. And so again, not everything is right, but then they know when you're actually trying, and they really appreciate that when they feel seen. So it is a two-way street. I think it's like any other relationship. When you have a brand, you have to listen to your consumer, and they have to feel like they're being seen.
Listening to consumer, exactly. Community is obviously so overly used. The word that always comes to mind for me is relevance as a company. Are you still speaking to consumer? All of you have done that so incredibly well. You're at the right time for a consumer that is seeking for something of value. And if you do that well, then you can really build something that's substantial. Are you still relevant? That's the question I always ask myself. Are we still doing our best? Can we do better? How does the community even evolve? Like what was community today may just completely die off tomorrow. You see that especially with movements, right? So how do you constantly stay in that mindset of evolving, growing, and challenging yourself to be there for your people? And that's dynamic. I think brands that can do that well, as you all do, will always stay ahead, which is amazing.
Another challenge so many people, I think, face today if you're launching a new brand is figuring out what in the world is going on with how consumers shop. Shopping habits are changing. We've obviously had e-commerce for a long time now, but even so, Chriselle, I think you mentioned, you're surprised at seeing people willing to blind buy fragrance on TikTok. And, there are things I think that, especially in terms of sort of younger generations and their shopping behaviors, that are really surprising. And so I'm curious, as you've sort of thought about what channels you want to focus on, what works for you. What has been your biggest learning about whether it's digital channels or even retail channels that has been sort of transformative for your growth?
Yeah, so something really interesting about Poppi is we launched March 3rd, 2020, the first week of COVID. So any traditional marketing playbook was kind of like thrown out the window, where in grocery or food and beverage, you typically build your retail footprint before say like online with a little bit of your own D2C. Well, we were kind of forced to do both from the beginning because everyone was more interested with putting toilet paper on the shelves than putting in new products in the grocery store. So we leaned heavy on Amazon pretty early on, right? We were a better for you product people could, stock up on, and it was just this like movement of the time. But what I love about it is we kind of wrote our own marketing playbook, and we decided to go omni-channel from day one because it was like maybe a month lag by the time we were in retail, and then we started launching in the Whole Foods and the Sprouts of the world. And it's a larger marketing budget, it's more resources, and it's more capital intensive. But it was working. And the way we looked at our Amazon channels and our online channels was it was almost like a flywheel for marketing. And we were not super concerned with a ton of ROI or tracking or doing all of that. What Poppi's goal for the first 3 years of business, our number one KPI was brand awareness. And honestly, just until recently are we changing that. And that, yes, comes with 2 Super Bowl ads and 50% of America knowing who you are. And you're like, wait, okay, I think we've done a good job with brand awareness. But I think we were never really concerned with like the data or like free, it's just like, this is working, let's double down. And it's like a gut feeling. And it allowed us to be one of the fastest growing beverages in the history of beverage. And it just was a movement. So it's pretty special.
At Olive & June, we really focus on product innovation, truly better products for the consumer that last longer. So it's very easy to build trust it has been easy to build trust when you create products that are as clean as possible, but as effective as possible. I don't want you to change your manicure because it's chipped or it's popped off. I want it to be that you're like, I'm done with this color. It has stayed on so long. Why is it not off my nails? And so we build the trust from the products. We start there. And that way, every time we launch something, our community knows this product is going to be better. This product is going to be as clean as possible. This product is going to be everything that I want it to be. And it's not going to be a dupe of something else in the market. And that's really important to us, that we build the trust from within the product innovation. As far as where we distribute, we built it slowly. We similarly were not focused on, I need this amount of revenue, or I need to grow in this way, or we stayed at Target for 4 years exclusively, which is very abnormal in beauty. Usually it's 1 to 2 years that you stay exclusive at a retailer. And we did that because we knew that we were building this e-com business on our website at olivandjune.com, but we were building something really special with Target for the consumer, and they got really comfortable with us. They knew us, and we could build it slowly. And similarly, again, to Allison and Poppi, like we don't have 2 Super Bowl ads and 50% of the world who knows us, but we had low awareness, and we still have low awareness, and that's a good thing because we are slowly building it so that the consumer comes in, and we have so much left to build, and that's really exciting for us. So we really build it in a very intentional way, and with and for the trust of the consumer, because then they will always look to our products, like when we launch gel or when we launch press-ons. Even if they're not a gel or press-on person, they're going to try it because Olive & June launched it.
Yeah, I think similar. I love what you said about there's still room, and I think we'll go into this when we talk a little bit more about M&A, but that's kind of how we viewed it. Like, we were able to get to this mark with just this much exposure, and there's a lot more room left to grow. But going back to blind buying, TikTok Shop, that was a really exciting period for us to launch, because when we relaunched Phlur in early 2022, blind buying fragrance was not a thing. And keep in mind, fragrance, there's no physical element besides the actual packaging and bottle that you could see it. Like with skincare, with nail polish, you could actually physically see it, with the colors and stuff, but with fragrance, it's just a mist, hard. Right? And so how do you sell that? And that was the question that we had, was like, are people actually gonna buy an unknown brand, an unknown scent? We're not at any retailers at this point. We weren't at Sephora or any stores where you could actually test it, because typically that is the typical buying behavior, which is you see an ad, you go to the store, you smell it, and then you determine if you like it or not, and then you purchase it. So we really did not know if it was gonna work. So when we launched it, I went onto TikTok, I shared my story, and we saw a little lift, and people were interested. They're like, how does missing a person smell like? How does heartbreak smell like? So we saw some orders come in, And then all of a sudden, I think it was a week after, so it wasn't like on the day up, but it was a week after, I was in Paris, and I was on my, I was at a bar, guys. I was at a bar, and I was—
Tell more, tell more.
Yeah. And I was like, what is going on with my phone? I wasn't completely there. It was really late, and my team back in LA was like, there's something happening right now. And what happened was there was a huge spike on TikTok where someone came on and sprayed it and started crying and was like, oh my God, this smells like my missing lover. Like it's like healing me. And that one video went so viral, and then we got some orders in, and then another person came on. And if you look on TikTok, Missing Person by Phlur, there's thousands and thousands of videos now where people are spraying missing person and crying and sharing their emotional missing moments. So it became more than a scent, it became therapy for people. And so TikTok really was a big learning curve for us. I think now it's kind of normal to blind buy a scent, but back then we had no idea if it was going to work. But I'm glad it worked.
That's great. Yeah, well, distribution in general, I'm always, whether it's TikTok or anything else, I always try to ask myself, does it even make sense to show up here for the customer? As just a very simple question. And we resisted a lot, like especially when, as you all have experienced, you creating that hockey stick effect and the company's doing well, the incoming requests for distribution, for partnership, it's like trying to stay as focused as possible and to resist chasing just the money or just another distribution channel. We're very lucky that we made the right decisions there because we could have easily not made the right ones. We waited probably like 8 years before even launching in retail. Everyone wanted us to launch in Sephora and Ulta and et cetera, but it was like, well, does it actually make sense to show up here with an expensive supplement, someone who's going to buy it for one time, they may not see results, and then what? We made the money, but they're actually not set up for success, right? So it didn't make any sense. Now, they did convince us to launch at Sephora and others over time, but to resist and to make sure that that process and that strategy is truly, truly set up for success, not for the company, not to just expand, not just to make more money or to take in more market share or more awareness, but does it make sense for the customer, for us as a brand, to show up in this spot? Because ultimately, you're stealing from someone's time, right? And that comes with responsibility. That's how we approached it. TikTok is working quite well now, but it was a surprise to me, to be honest with you, because hair loss is emotional for people, and we're still a premium product, so we didn't necessarily believe that it would work well, but so far so good.
A lot of the consumer brands that launched maybe 10 years ago, I think had this idea that they were going to win all this venture capital and grow like tech companies and sort of be valued that way and be treated that way by the market. And a lot of those brands have since sort of flamed out, and it's almost like that model was sort of maybe a false idol that we were all pursuing. I've even heard people say, to make this a little spicier, did venture capital corrupt CPG? Like, has all these categories that venture capital money was pouring into, has that been really net negative in some ways? I'm curious for you, like, what was your model? Like, when you were building, growing, like, what was your North Star? Like, what did you, if not a tech company, like, what did you want to grow up to be, and how did that sort of shape your approach to the growth?
I think for us, I truly feel like we are living the American dream. Like, I made Poppi in my kitchen with my husband, and then we went on Shark Tank and got a deal on Shark Tank, and then it was, oh my goodness, we're going to take on investment, and we found one good investor that just doubled down with us along the way. And it was really in that marketing mindset that allowed for us for growth, is the money also had that same mindset. So we weren't necessarily thinking about us as like some crazy tech or some crazy valuation. Like, food and bev doesn't get those type of valuations usually. So it was more so our end goal was always to sell to someone like Pepsi, because especially in beverage, distribution is such a big channel that like you have 3 buyers basically. or you go IPO. And it was just like, oof, I don't know if we want to do that. So it was like one of those things that even on Shark Tank days, I remember us being like, we are going to be the largest deal in Shark Tank history, which we did. We are going to sell to a strategic, which we did, right? These were just like goals we said on that path. And then it just came down to the right time, right? The right moment, the right partner that you just kind of like know and feel is right. And so for us, it wasn't, I don't know if like tech was even a part of the conversation, but I think M&A is just harder, right? Than even for beverage. They did get more multiples, I would say even like 4 years ago. They were getting like 6 to 8x. So it's just times have changed and sometimes you have to just roll with it.
Yeah, I would say that I grew up, I mean, Olive and June was created in 2013, so it was the era of everyone around me was raising VC money and the era of the girl boss, and I watched it implode on itself. And nails was not a super sexy category in beauty, so we weren't hair, we weren't makeup, and so we didn't get as much clout and credit, and so I had to be scrappier about how I raised money, but the consumer has always been my guide. So even when an investor has said, don't go into Target, stay on e-com, or do it this way, or do it that way, like I really resonate with what you said, where it's like, what's right for the consumer? I'm at Target and not at a different retailer to launch because that's where the nail consumer was. That's where she, and we like pulling men in too, but that's where predominantly she shops for nails. And so it made sense for the consumer. And I think what's frustrating to me when, you know, I really resonate with the headline that you said, has VC killed CPG? Because what they were trying to do is be like, well, Olive and June needs to be a lifestyle brand, or so-and-so needs to be a tech company. And it's like, no, actually, we are stewards for our community, period. We are here to create products to make your lives better, to put smiles on your face, and to make you feel good about your day. We're not here to gamify this with an algorithm. So just so the investor can get a bigger valuation. That's so frustrating to me because it ruins it for the consumer, but also it puts the founder in this position of you're on this hamster wheel of numbers and revenue, and if you don't hit these numbers, then something's wrong. Actually, grow it in the most organic way possible. Don't get forced by your investors. Hopefully, everyone can have investors like you do, or like you did, where they are aligned. And I feel so excited about Helen of Troy as our parent company because they are completely aligned in the mission that we're in. And I was grateful to have the investors that were similar, but I saw it around me, and I think it was a complete disservice to not only the consumer, but mostly to the founders and to those teams.
Yeah, I think when I came on board with Phlur, fragrance was not a growing category. So when my business partner and I were talking about, okay, what does this look like for us? You know, is there going to be an exit? Is that what we're planning to do? I think that was in our mind, but we never thought that it would happen this fast and at this speed, because again, we did not know that fragrance was going to have such a big moment within these last years. But I think ultimately we both love product. I think because we're both product people, I've been on the creator side, on the consumer side for so long. That was where my real heart was. It's just creating really good product for the consumer, and that's all that mattered to me. And I think because that's where our head was and our community, when this opportunity came for us, when TSG approached us about partnering with them, it kind of surprised us because we weren't expecting this to happen this early on. And so I feel very grateful, as are very aligned, and for me, it's all about protecting the brand to how it got to where it is, which is about storytelling and that messaging. And that's still my job, is to really protect Phlur, even though we have new owners now. But I think at the end of the day, for me, it's about, I'm a consumer girl, I'm a product girl. That is hands down why Phlur got to where it's at. It's a really great product. So.
Yeah, a lot of noise always that was coming in. Are you a beauty company? Are you a science company? Are you a vitamin and mineral company? What about these valuations? What about these multiples? It's like, well, what feels authentic to you, right? Even during the M&A process, like, so we'll make 2 decks, one beauty deck and one vitamin and mineral deck. It's like, stay authentic to yourself. I was just very, very lucky that, really lucky that I made the right decisions and followed my gut, and I partner up with good people who stood by you during difficult moments. It's very easy to stand by people when things are going great. That's easy. You know, I'm more interested in people across the board, and this is not just with friendships, but you know, whether it's investors, partners, and acquisition partners. It's like, to me, it warms my heart that Nutrafol is now in the hands of Unilever, and they truly care about the mission. They care about the people, and that's a dream coming true.
So yeah, all of you have exited at this point. A couple just in the last few months, really, which is very exciting. And obviously, it's kind of come up now. That yeah, I'm curious. Tell us, at what point you really were you planning for acquisition, and how did that shape what you were building? You know, I think there are certainly categories where, you know, people are thinking from the outset about that, and others where you're not. It's more of a, you know, a passion project. How did that work for you? And in terms of, you know, culture or metrics you were pursuing, like how did that all play out as you started to really focus in on M&A as the way to exit?
I think that's an interesting question, because it's like you're kind of always doing it, but then every year, depending on what your burn is or what you're trying to prepare for, the right time, and then you don't want to do it too early because it squeezes it's like a dance, to your point. And so we had been, obviously the goal from day one was to get to where we are today. So it was always just an ever conversation that we were having at every board meeting of like, if we do this or if this timing. And so it was almost like we modeled it out years ahead of time of different scenarios. Okay, what if we don't and we just pour gasoline on the fire and we just grow, right? Or what if we need to become profitable by this date to do this, right? So I think it was just part of our conversation. We had really smart people at the table with a ton of experience in exits, and it was just one of those things that it was just the right time, like I said, with the right moment, but I think that also it was the right partner. So we had a couple other offers. We had been talking to certain people, and it was one of those things that with Pepsi, it just like moved really quick too. They just got us. They're allowing Poppi to stay Poppi. So that was like a really big thing for me, and I'm sure like you guys as well, as you don't want like someone to come in and just like change all your hard work, but you want to have like a true partner. And I just really feel like they did that. So it was, you know, I think we were really smart within the modeling and doing it at the right time, because there's a point where you get too big, you can't honestly get bought, right? Like if you're not in tech. So it's a dance.
Yeah, I think similarly, from the moment you take investment, you have to monetize for your investors, so that's part of your job. I really tried to put it as much in the back of my mind as I could, because you're building this real company that needs to have real profit and stand on its own and solve real consumer pain points, or else it's not a real company, you're just building it for scale to sell it. I am obsessed with nails. I'm a mani obsessi, my team calls me. My dad didn't let me paint my nails when I was a kid, so I would stash nail polish in a box under my bed and paint my nails when he was on work trips. He also hates the color red nail polish, so there's just the moments where I like to bring it out and really flaunt it. But I've always loved nails, and so I didn't build this company, even though I knew when I took on investment I had to monetize it in some way. I never built it just to sell it, but I wanted to change. I wanted to lead this mani DIY revolution, and so I knew at some point that I was going to need a partner, most likely, unless I could figure it out myself, to take us from 100 million to $1 billion, and with the resources and the scale and the experience to do that. So it was obvious from day one, but to the point of I really put it in the back of my mind and really focused on the fundamentals of the business and making the best possible products and serving the consumer and the customer, and just really that being my focus. Because otherwise, again, you're like in that VC trap of just, I'm just trying to get to the next thing and just sell this thing. And it's the reason I'm staying on. And we're running standalone, and I'm staying on with no contract. I love my job. And so I want to keep doing it for as long, I said, as long as they'll have me and as long as it's not annoying. I have a boss now, which is weird, for the first time in 13 years, because I worked in finance before this. So I love it. And I think if you love it, then it really isn't about, it's exciting to sell, and I bought a house, and that's very exciting. But otherwise, it's my job. I love this.
I think I'm a startup girl. Like, I love building. That's like the core of who I am. As long as I'm building something and creating, like, I'm in my happy zone. But I think the real moment for me was like, okay, we built this into a $100 million business, as you were saying, but like, we know how to do that, right? We know how to do that well. But to take it to $1 billion, I don't know how to do that. I can't do that on my own. And so that was when we're like, okay, this, even though it's happening a lot faster than what we were expecting, I think this is the time. I think this is when we double down and we get the support that we need. We find the right partner. And again, TSG came knocking on our door at that moment when we were having those conversations. So we just felt like, and of course we went through the whole due diligence process, and it just felt like they really understood us and they felt like the right partner. I always say you have to date them a little bit before, just to make sure that before you get into bed with them, you're like, okay, this is it. This is good. This feels nice. So we did that for a while, and it felt good and it felt right. And we just had to have that realistic conversation of like, can we really do this on our own to the next level? So.
Yeah, it's funny how selling a company is so idolized in a way, right? And it's like everyone is just building companies to sell them, and it's like such a weird thing if you actually truly think about it. When we sold, actually, my wife's mother's from the Philippines, and I asked her, I told her, and she was feeling so sorry for me. She's like, I'm so sorry you had to sell your company, and she didn't understand it, and it's, build a company like you never want to sell it. Someone actually told me that, right? Because then that's how you're going to continue to care along the way. Unfortunately, yes, there's absolutely realities, with investors and people. And one of my greatest moments is the people that believed in us in the beginning. That, the small numbers that they invested at the time when nobody believed in me, turned into small little fortune for all these individuals. And then there's a beautiful ripple effect of that, right? Because people care, and then people can put that money to work, hopefully, and support themselves, their communities, etc. There's nothing better than that. But to build, the goal is to sell companies, or the goal is to go IPO. It's like that's the way to monetize things. But I miss it dearly. 600 people that continue to do amazing work. It's bittersweet. So. I don't think selling a company should ever be the goal, even though investors tell you to do so. I think the goal is to build a healthy company that will sustain and add value to people's lives forever.
There's definitely some advice baked into there, but I'm curious, as a last
It's my own learnings.
Yeah, yes. As a last question, when you are talking to founders today, I think some of you are, also investing in younger companies. When you think about your category, whether it's beverage, beauty, fragrance, wellness, I get many categories for Nutrafol.
What'd you decide on?
Yeah.
Which did you go with?
A or B?
We were so geeked out on science all the time. We considered ourselves always a science company. But yeah, the companies, by the way, that failed, to your original question, is the companies that tried to be something that they were not. Yeah. Right? That's why they failed. It wasn't authentic.
Yeah. Just for a multiple, just for an exit, just for no reason other than someone's ego along the way.
Right.
Well, I guess with that in mind, what's the advice that you find yourself most frequently giving to younger founders, founders coming up when you meet them today? What do you feel like they need to hear in order to be successful in the category?
I think in the early days, the most important lesson I learned is to let your ego step aside and allow people to help you. You have to get out of the weeds. You cannot continue to do everything yourself. I mean, I was whiteboarding with a founder yesterday, and he's like, I do everything from ops to finance to customer service. I was just like, you're gonna kill yourself, right? And so I think as a founder, you don't start a company to have people tell you what to do, but that collaboration can really allow you to do great things. So for me, my biggest piece of advice is hire people. And I think I learned it really well and pretty early on. I was running our marketing for the first 2 years, and it got to the point where, I love what you said, you're like, I don't know how to scale to $1 billion. Like, I didn't know how to buy a Super Bowl ad, right? So then I moved over to CBO, and it allowed me to run the creative and brand and just do what I was really good at. Was it hard? Yes, it was very hard. Did I cry? Yeah, sure, I cried, but it got me stronger. And so I love to give that learnings to other founders. Like, it's okay to ask for help. Don't let your ego get in the way, and hire if you can.
Yeah. I think obviously everyone's talked about consumer focus. One other thing I'd bring up, but that probably would have been my answer if we hadn't, I think, really hit it home on the panel. But I think also surrounding yourself with people that are no people, not people that are yes people, and really getting the other side. And doesn't mean that they're right, doesn't mean that they're going to tell you what to do or that you're listening blindly to those people, but you're taking in another point of view. I had an advisory board that was separate from my board, and it was all working C-level at bigger companies than mine. So for example, the CFO of Glossier, the CRO of Beats, et cetera. And that advisory board was so impactful to me because I got so much pushback and also so many new ideas. But it also helped me when I was raising I thought I was gonna raise a Series A, COVID hits, we get profitable. Oh, I don't need $7 million, so I'm pulling back. Now I'm raising just $3 million. And I'm doing it because someone on my advisory board said, Sarah, look at the numbers. What are you doing? You don't need this cash. So, and I saved 10 points on my exit because of that. But it was someone who had no problem saying to me, no. And so I would really encourage founders to work with people that will push them to be the best possible versions of themselves. You can call them coaches, you can call them no people, you can call them advisors, you can call them whatever you want, but it's the people that are gonna help you kind of mold yourself into the best possible version, and so you're making the best decisions.
I think for me, it's really building the brand before you hit retail, before you go into the shelves, whatever product category you're in. I think there is a lot of ego in a sense of making it if you're in certain retailers, but the fact is that there's a lot of competition and there's a lot of great products out there. And so when you go into retail, you want the consumer to be coming looking for the product. You don't want to rely on the retailers to be building your brand for you. You have to build a brand first before you go into these shops. And that was a really big learning for us. And I think it's the best thing for a lot of founders, especially in the beauty category, because there's a lot of great brands out there now. So you have to build your community, own that customer first before you kind of put it out there in the world.
I know we're out of time, but for the conversations I always have with people are the why. Like, what's the reason? Why should you even do what you do? And why should anyone even care? I know that's a hard question, but every single time I either meet founders or companies to invest in, it's like I want to understand why people do what they do, and frankly, how determined are they? We didn't give up, and it was against all odds. So and the stronger your why, the less likely you are to give up, right? So trying to nail that, and then to attract amazing people, because ultimately I think that life is about doing great things with great people. That's how you change the world, and then it's okay, of course, how you find those people. And there's 3 things I always look at. These are not my words. I'm going to therapy for this, because try to figure it all out, afterwards. But I look for people who are just very, almost like badass executors. You need people that can execute. The second piece is, are they good people, good to the bones? And the third piece is, are people, including myself, by the way, are we willing to evolve? I think if you can strike the right balance there, you're in a good place.
That is all amazing advice, and I know we're out of time, so thank you so much to our panelists. It was a really great conversation.
Thank you.